Don and I have been married for 8 years. We graduated from college together and got married a year later. We both have good jobs and are saving as much money as we can for our first home. We don't have kids yet. I want them, but Donna just isn't interested in being a mother in any sense of the word. That seemed to be the only disagreement in our marriage. We had our first sex when we were in college, and we were always open to trying new things. By new things, I mean within certain limits. Nothing kinky. Our sex life was active and fairly constant until about 4 months ago. In college, birdwatching brought us together. We both loved being out in the open, looking for elusive species we hadn't seen yet. We met on an organized birding trip and found ourselves enjoying each other's company. It was nice to have someone to go out with, and we both enjoyed the same things. Our first sex was in the woods, and it turned out to be Donna's favorite place to partake in carnal pleasures. She has shoulder-length brown hair and swarthy Mediterranean skin. Her breasts are small, firm, and perfectly round, without the slightest sag. Perhaps she did not aspire to have children because she was afraid of losing her beautiful breasts. Another thing I like about Donna is a lot of thick, dark hair. She was hesitant to shave off the extra body hair because she was afraid it would get thicker again. That was fine with me because I thought it added to her charm. I loved this woman deeply. For a while, I was consumed with my work and probably worked too much overtime. Donna would get home from work much earlier than I did. She would change her clothes and go to one of our favorite bird-watching spots until it got dark. She always kept a diary of the birds she saw. Usually there was nothing interesting or unusual in there, but she felt it was important to keep good records. She was almost obsessed with it. I would come home after dark and usually fall asleep on the couch while we watched TV. I just worked too much and wasn't a good companion or husband. After a few days without sex, I expected her to become active. On the contrary, she seemed relieved that I wasn't trying to make any physical contact with her. That's when I started to worry. I had never played team sports as a kid. My parents tried to get me interested in all sorts of activities with other kids my age. The problem was that I had a very bad temper. I would fly off the handle at the slightest provocation and lash out at any kid who made me angry. By the time I graduated from high school, I had learned to keep it under control. My wife was unaware of this problem. She never seemed to do anything to push me over the edge. That's probably why I was attracted to her. My parents never told her about it. I rearranged my workload and schedule so I could have more time with Donna. I explained to my boss that I was overstretched, and he totally understood. Now I had to try to mend my relationship with my wife. I had no reason to suspect her of infidelity, but I could sense her resentment. Donna, we could spend a week or two somewhere quiet and romantic. I feel like we haven't spent a minute together lately. Maybe a 3-day weekend, Brian, but I don't think either of us would want to be away from work longer than that. I think it's really important that we stick to the plan to save up the down payment on the house. Your recycling has helped build the down payment, and I wouldn't want us to fall behind. Donna, the house is very important, but I feel like we don't spend enough time together. When I get home from work, I'm too tired to be good company, and we spend the weekend doing chores and shopping. Honey, I think you're making a big deal out of this. I'd be more than happy to take a short trip to somewhere close, but I'm just not ready to go on a full-blown vacation. I guess I'm just too anxious. I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can to make you happy. I am happy, Brian. I'll let you know if things go south so we can put a stop to it. We have enough real problems without imaginary ones. I hope you're right. I don't want you to have a wandering eye. When I said that, she gave me a slight wink. Well, that was my attempt to make my marriage better. I didn't say anything about my new work schedule. That night I made a weak attempt at sex, but she had a headache. Before I went to bed, I checked Donna's journal. From the looks of it, she was getting out of the house on a regular basis. I have a little Honda 250 Rebel motorcycle that I really love. It's fast, quiet, and easy to handle. I rode it to work that day. Donna usually got home around 4 o'clock. About that time, I told Marge, my secretary, that I would be at the archives for the rest of the day. I asked her to call me on my cell phone when she got home. There are no landlines in the basement, and no one usually works there. I went out the fire entrance at the back of the building and put a small wedge in the door so it wouldn't lock. 5 minutes later, I was already parked on the street next to the house. My wife came home at the usual time, changed her clothes, and was at the bird-watching site in 10 minutes. I knew where she was going, so I didn't follow her too closely. 10 minutes later, her Volvo was parked in the Rainbow Mountain Main Trail parking lot. A black BMW was parked next to it. We spent a lot of time in this park, so I knew the trails well. After parking the bike among the trees, I took another trail. I took my time and tried not to make any noise. Years of bird-watching had given me an edge in this area. Every few minutes I stopped and surveyed the area through binoculars. Toward the top of the mountain, it became a little rough. Trails were marked, but they were near dangerous ledges. This was good for hawk watching, especially at this time of year. You could see the valley for miles, and everything was beautiful unless you looked down. I couldn't help myself. I stopped and pointed my binoculars at the valley, peeking out for early hawk arrivals. It was beautiful. Just then I heard a giggle. The forest was thick enough that it was easy to hide if necessary. Of course, it also made it difficult to see someone if they were hiding. My attention was now drawn to the faint sound I heard. It wasn't constant, so it was hard to pinpoint. I slowly moved forward, making no sound and listening very carefully. A yellow flash gave them away. It was the lining of her vest. I found a comfortable spot that allowed me a good view and pulled out my scope. The binoculars were handy, but the scope gave me a much better picture and I had a camera attached to it. I found a spot from where I could see well. Lying down, I could hide and still observe for a long time without getting tired. It was a very private place and they didn't have to worry about anyone accidentally finding them. My wife's companion was Clayton Mankey. He had joined Donna's firm about 6 months ago. I'd met him at a few corporate events. He was a pretty nice guy, and I really liked him. He had a nice wife, quiet but attractive, and 2 elementary school-age boys. I liked his boys and wished I had a couple like them. Why would a guy with such a perfect family get involved with my wife? Clay spread out a blanket while I made myself comfortable. In a flash, Donna slipped out of her jeans and panties. I could make out giggles and laughter. She teased him by pulling her knees up to her chest, keeping both legs just under her knees. I got a couple good shots as he continued to pleasure her. There was a look of intense concentration on her face. She pushed his head away, pressed her knees together, and rocked from side to side for about 5 seconds before spitting spread-eagled on the blanket. The wide grin on her face made a great picture. At some point, Clay had his pants off and was ready to finish the job. There was no condom. He was no bigger than me, and there was nothing special about his equipment. I noticed that there was nothing romantic or loving about what they were doing. It was like watching dogs sleep. At this point, I realized that I didn't like watching these two make love, but I was starting to get angry. The initial shock of what was happening had passed, and now the anger was growing. I probably should have just rushed in there and let my temper get the better of me, but I forced myself to be patient. I didn't have a plan. It didn't take him long to finish, and after lying on the blanket for a few minutes, a few more giggles were heard, and they started getting dressed. The whole date took less than an hour. Donna kissed him, but not as a lover, but as a husband. He was gathering up the blanket when she left. They seemed to have decided it would be best if they came and went separately. I quickly gathered my things and walked down the path behind her, far enough away that she couldn't see me. I stopped at the lookout point of Hawk Mountain. It was a flat rock overlooking the valley below. It was at least 300 feet high. A beautiful place, but dangerous. I was standing there looking through my binoculars when Clayton showed up on the trail. My blood boiled when I saw him, but outwardly I was calm. "What are you looking at?" "That's a red-tailed hawk feeding its cubs at the top of that pine tree over there." He looked that way, but he didn't see anything. Of course, there was nothing to see. "That tree over there, covered in cones." "I can't see it yet." He moved a little closer to the edge and leaned over. Then he looked at me again. Do I know you from somewhere? Yeah, we've met before. I'm Brian Powers, Donna's husband. His eyes went wide. The last thing he said was, "Oh, shit," as I gently pushed him over the edge. The next few moments went by like in slow motion. It seemed to take him forever to reach the bottom, although in reality it was probably about 4 or 5 seconds. As I looked over the edge, my cell phone rang. Clay was lying face down, his leg tucked under his torso in an unnatural position. I stared at him mesmerized for a minute as I answered the call. "Hey, Marge, what's going on?" "I'm leaving. Are you going to be there all day?" "No, I'm just finishing up. I'll be back upstairs in about 10 minutes. "Okay, I left 2 letters on your desk that need to be signed. I have to send them in the morning." "Oh, no problem. Thanks, Marge. I'll see you tomorrow." It took me over 10 minutes to get to the office, but it didn't matter since Marge had left anyway. Before heading home, I changed my hiking boots for Oxfords. The boots went into the dumpster a few blocks from work. Donna was surprised to see me home so early. Clayton's body wasn't found until the next day. It was on the evening news, and Donna was upset. He didn't show up for work today. Everyone wondered if he was sick, but his wife said he didn't come home yesterday. What the hell was he doing on Rainbow Mountain? He wasn't into birdwatching or anything, was he? Donna stammered a little. "No, I don't think so. Did you go there yesterday after work?" "No, I had some laundry to do." "I wonder if anyone saw anything. Not too many people there during the week. Well, I guess I'd better get the black suit out of mothballs." Donna threw a quick glance at me. She seemed upset because I was being a bit flippant. "I'm sorry, dear. I know you work together, and I didn't mean to take his death lightly." That night, I noticed her crying quietly as we went to bed. I didn't say anything. 2 days later, I got a visit at work. "Hi, I'm Detective Felix Green. Do you have time to answer a few questions for me?" "No problem. What can I do for you?" "Mr. Powers, did you know Clayton Mankey?" "He worked at the same place as my wife. We're not friends or anything, but we met at a few social events. Is this about the accident at Rainbow Mountain on Tuesday?" "We're just trying to make ends meet." "That's fine, but I don't see how I can help you." "It seems your wife was a close friend of Mr. Mankey's, and we just want to make sure you weren't upset about their relationship." "What relationship?" "I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. My wife worked with Clayton Mankey, and that was the limit of their relationship." "I see where you're going with this, and I don't like it. If you're going to make statements like that, I hope you have some supporting facts." "We spoke to your wife this morning, Mr. Powers. She was with Clayton Mankey at Rainbow Mountain Tuesday, just before the accident." "That's impossible. I asked her yesterday, and she said she was doing laundry at home. I don't think she wants you to know about their relationship." "Damn it! Here we go again. I told you not to make such accusations about my wife." "It's not an accusation, Mr. Powers. Your wife told us this morning that she dated Clayton Mankey for over 3 months. "Dating him how?" "We didn't talk about it, and even if we did, I wouldn't feel comfortable discussing it here. It's something you and your wife have to decide for yourselves." "Are you trying to say something, or are you just trying to make me angry?" "Relax, Mr. Powers. It's not our intention to upset you. We spoke to your secretary, Marge Schumann, and she said you spent most of Tuesday in the basement going through archived files. Not most of the day, just 2 hours or less. The rest of the time I was in my office. I left early, around 5:30 or 6. The guard downstairs said you checked out around 5:45. "That's about right. I wasn't keeping track of time. I just wanted to get home to my wife." "Your wife said you got home around 6 o'clock. It's only a 10-minute drive. She said I was there till tonight?" "Relax, Mr. Powers. Everything's fine. We're just running a few loose ends to make sure nothing's missing. You really didn't know about your wife's relationship with Clayton Mankey?" "No, but I think it's going to be a major topic of discussion at the dinner table tonight." Felix Green gave me his card, apologized, and quietly walked out. I was out of my mind. I swear there was smoke coming out of my ears. I threw the stapler across the room just as Marge walked in. Brian, I hope I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't want you to get in trouble, so I just answered their questions as honestly as I could. It's okay, Marge. My wife and I seem to be having some personal problems. You may have to cover for me for the next few days. Looks like I'm going to be very busy. No problem. I had no intention of working out my problems with Donna. All I wanted was to find a better way to end this marriage. Fortunately, there were no children, and we were living in a rented house. I wanted children terribly, but was now glad Donna had said no. It wasn't even 3 o'clock yet, but I packed up all my things and headed out the door. Marge gave me an understanding nod as I left. We had $75,000 in change in our house account. I took 63 and walked down the street to the local GM dealer. 2 hours later, having become $58,000 poorer, I drove out in a yellow Hummer. I decided I didn't need a new house. I needed the extra money to buy gas for the monster. Shortly after I pulled into the driveway, Donna came out. "What the hell is this?" "You like it? It's my new car." I decided I wanted something a little sportier. "Are you crazy? How the hell are we going to pay for something like this?" "No problem. I paid for it in cash." "Where the hell did you get the money to buy a truck like that? Don't tell me you took money out of our house account." "Well, I don't see why a single guy needs a house, so I bought a Hummer." There was a crowd outside. As we entered the house, Donna grabbed my arm. "What do you mean, a single guy?" "I think you know the answer to that question. Why would I buy a house with you? Hell, why would I stay with you?" "Come on, Brian. You're talking like a crazy person. Just calm down and come to your senses." "All right, honey. Detective Green came to see me today and told me about your relationship with Clayton Mankey. You were at Rainbow Mountain with him the other day. You said you were doing your laundry at home. You want to explain?" "I didn't want to upset you. Clayton and his wife were having problems, and since he was new in town, he had no one to talk to about it. I just gave him a shoulder to cry on." "What's wrong with going to Denny's or Starbucks? Why did you have to go up Rainbow Mountain?" Clay was very excited and was afraid he was going to break down and cry. He didn't want to do that in public. I got up and poured myself a cup of coffee. Donna sat quietly, waiting for my next move. It was like a little game. I was angry that she had decided to play it at all. "It's all bullshit, and you know it. It hurts me that you think so badly of me that you would try to pull something like that. You and Clayton were lovers for over 3 months. You cheated on me, and he cheated on his wife. I'm tired of hearing you make up stories for little girls. Either deal with it like an adult or keep your damn mouth shut." "You don't know what you're talking about. Just because you make something up doesn't mean it's true. Clayton Mankey and I were nothing but friends. If you can prove otherwise, go ahead. I had pictures, damn good ones. If I show the pictures, I'll have to admit I was at Rainbow Mountain the day Clay died. My fists were clenched, and the blood vessels in my neck and forehead were bursting. I have some really beautiful pictures, Donna. Would that be proof enough?" "Photographs of what? Where were the pictures taken?" "Pictures of you having sex in a motel." "Ha, that proves you're lying. We never had sex in a motel." Donna froze, realizing what she'd just said. Her denial was also a confession. In her eagerness to prove me wrong, she snapped. She never finished the sentence. Her eyes snapped to me, and her lower lip quivered with anger. She hated being hit. "You son of a bitch! I'm not talking about this anymore, and you're not getting a divorce from me. You can go to bed in your new truck because you won't be able to get into bed with me for a long, long time. Take your fucking dinner and leave me alone. We're going to the funeral together tomorrow anyway, right? Kiss my ass." It was an unusual funeral because both Clayton and his wife Emily were from out of town. I don't know why she chose to bury him here instead of in their hometown. The only thing that occurred to me was that she was upset about the circumstances of his death and didn't want to explain it to her friends and family. Most of the people were from the office where Donna and Clayton worked. At the end of the ceremony, people walked past the widow expressing their condolences. As we got closer, Emily sent the boys away. Donna held out her hand, and Emily looked her in the eye. "You have a lot of nerve showing up here, you bloody cheater. You ruined my marriage, you ruined my family, and you have the nerve to come here to rub it in. If I ever see you again, I will tear you to pieces. That's a promise." Donna stared at her with her mouth open. She didn't know what to say or do. She wanted to say something, but changed her mind, turned, and walked to the car. A few people nearby heard the whole thing. I looked at Emily Mankey, who was watching my wife walk away. There was hatred in her eyes. "I'm sorry if she hurt you in any way. I'm sure it wasn't intentional." "Oh, grow up. She cheated on you, and you're defending her. How weak are you? Go comfort your slut wife. You're just annoying me, and I don't need that right now." I gave her a slight nod and walked back to the car. Donna didn't say anything on the way home, but when we got to the house, she unloaded on me. "You son of a bitch! Why did you insist I go to that damn funeral just to be made a fool of?" "I'm sorry, but there were a lot of people from your work there. Why did she pick you to attack?" "Blow it out of your ass, you crafty scumbag." She stormed out of the house, and I didn't hear a word from her for the rest of the day. I slept in the spare bedroom from then on. I didn't want to have sex with her anyway, so when she made her decision, I was relieved. The next day around noon, I pulled up to Emily Mankey's house. I had no idea what I was going to say, but I felt obligated. She was in the garage with the boys taking apart some boxes. Hi. Sorry to bother you, but I wanted to apologize for anything I might have done yesterday to upset you." She just looked at me and kept working. Finally, she turned around. "Look, I've got a lot on my plate right now. I have to clean up the mess my husband left behind and then find some way to move on with my life. I just don't have time to listen to whining right now. Is there anything I can do to help?" "Are you serious?" "Yes. I have time, and I don't mind helping." "All right, grab a handful of these trash bags and follow me." We went into the house and upstairs to the master bedroom. "This is Clay's closet, and this is his dresser. Take everything out of them and put it in the bags. When you're done, you can take them to Goodwill. Can you handle that?" "Sure. Can the boys help?" "Josh and Terry. This is Mr. Powers. Help him put Dad's stuff in bags so we can get rid of it. Okay?" The boys shook my hand. Josh was about 8 years old and Terry was 6. They were two great-looking kids that I would have given anything for. It took less than an hour, and the boys and I lugged bags of clothes and shoes to the Hummer. I took the load downtown and came home. And now what? "It's okay, Mr. Powers. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to feel obligated just because of what your wife did." "Do you know exactly what they did, or is it just a hunch?" "A little of both, but I don't want to talk about it in front of the boys." "Could we discuss it later?" "Come back tomorrow. I have to clean out the basement and the garage. If you don't mind working while we talk, the boys are meeting some high school buddies." "Sounds good, but I'm going to miss the boys." Leaving made me feel a little better. I felt bad about killing Emily's husband, but I think he deserved it. I think Emily felt the same way. I had no idea what I was supposed to do with Donna. I don't know why she resisted the divorce. When I got home, my wife was making chili. I decided to try to get her to open up a little before we sat down at the table. "Donna, in light of what's happened over the last few days, wouldn't it be better if we considered separating?" "No, not really. I think it's pretty obvious now that you and Clayton were having an affair. I suppose you were unhappy with our union. Would you care to try to explain that to me?" "I don't have much to say, Brian. After spending some time with Clay, both at work and at other times, I realized that your vision of our future together was not what I was looking for. You envisioned me as a domestic goddess, bearing children left and right, and I wanted something more. I hesitated to discuss it with you because I never wanted to say or do anything that would make you unhappy. Clay had the same problem with Emily. She wanted what you wanted, and I wanted what Clay wanted. We ended up comforting each other, and then the sex started. He wasn't better than you, just different. Doesn't divorce seem appropriate now?" "Absolutely not. I'm not going to give up my home and all the comforts of marriage just because we disagreed. I intend to stay here. You can't kick me out because I've done nothing to justify it. I don't think you're going to leave, so we'll just have to get used to living in the same house together and being a married couple. Sit down and eat. There was no conversation at dinner. I swallowed 2 servings because the sauce seemed especially hot. An hour or 2 later, I started having stomach pains. I made several trips to the bathroom and finally started throwing up. I noticed there was some blood in the bowl. Donna, I feel really bad. Can you take me to the emergency room? Hell no, Desperate Housewives is on. If your stomach hurts, take Tums. It's more than a stomach ache, Donna. Come on, please. Drive yourself. You're acting like a child. I grabbed my keys and went to my car. My neighbor was taking out the trash and asked me what was wrong. I explained, and he took me to the emergency room. The next thing I remember is waking up and looking at the sun streaming through the window. I turned to look the other way and saw Detective Green reading a magazine. "Good afternoon, Mr. Powers. I thought you were going to sleep all day. What the hell are you doing here? What's up and what time is it?" "Hey, kid. I'm the one asking the questions. Calm down." "All right." Chuckles. "I'm sorry if I got a little anxious." "Understandable, given the circumstances. Brian, I think you got some bad chili last night. Luckily, a neighbor got you here in time. They had to pump you up and give you a bunch of fancy medicine that I can't pronounce." "What the hell was that?" "They gave me a fancy name, but it was basically rat poison." "What a bitch. What did she say?" "Well, she gave us leftover chili, and it was fine. She claims she has no idea where the poison could have come from. She ate the same food you ate, and she was fine. We checked the house and the garage and found nothing." "So what are you going to do?" "Nothing yet." About that time, the doctor and a nurse came in. He checked a bunch of stuff, while the nurse took another blood sample. He said I could go home when I was ready, and gave me a paper with a list of some fresh food. I borrowed Detective Green's phone and called Emily to apologize for not coming to her rescue. Felix took the phone. "Why does your wife want to kill you, Mr. Powers?" "I don't know." "Why did she kill Clayton Mankey?" "Do you know that for a fact?" "No, but she was at Rainbow Mountain and she was the last person to see him alive." "Come on, Brian, I'll take you home." Donna was all in tears when we got home and apologized over and over again for not being more responsive to my problem. I walked to the spare room and closed the door behind me. I didn't eat at home again after that. The next day, I told Marge that I would be on sick leave and asked her to try to find an apartment for me. Somehow, she found out what had happened. I waited until Donna left for work and then started packing some things so I could move out quickly if necessary. I was a little upset that the police couldn't do anything about the poisoning. After a quick breakfast at IHOP, I stopped by Emily's. The boys were at school. Emily was more upset about what had happened than Donna. I promised her I'd come back later when I'd settled some personal matters. Donna didn't want a divorce, but she wanted me dead. That meant one of 2 things: revenge or money. I stopped to see my insurance agent. It was probably stupid, but shortly after we were married, I took out a $1 million life insurance policy with Donna as the beneficiary. The payouts were high, and the cash value was already over $16,000. I cashed them in. I went to work and canceled the medical and dental insurance I had on Donna. I changed the beneficiary on my company's insurance policies to my mother. Marge was happy to see me and offered to help in any way she could. The bank manager told me that Donna had already cleaned out the balance of the house fund, about $12,000. I explained the situation to him, and he agreed to set things up so he could close the credit cards. I opened a new account and signed a bunch of paperwork for him. I turned toward the house. Donna was there, dressed in her bird clothes. We were polite to each other, but not too hot. She said she was going up Rainbow Mountain to do some bird watching and rest. I felt like I was being set up, but decided to play along. Shortly after she left, I was on my way up on my bike. Her car was parked in the upper parking lot next to a gray Ford Ranger. I quickly rounded the mountain and headed for the lower lot. Her mountain bike was chained to a tree on the side of the road. Donna was standing behind a rock ledge talking to a guy carrying a small shotgun. It was a pistol with a pistol grip instead of a buttstock. As I watched, she handed him a photograph and a business-sized envelope. He looked at the photograph carefully, then opened the envelope and counted out a large sum of money. They shook hands, and Donna quickly headed straight for me. I quickly ducked behind a small ledge and waited silently for her to pass. The man she was talking to squatted behind some rocks to watch the trail coming from the parking lot. He was waiting, and I was pretty sure exactly what he was waiting for. Donna was counting on me to follow her and assumed I'd come from the parking lot where she'd parked the car. Going down the path was faster than going up. When I got downstairs, I saw that her bike was gone. I went up to the upper parking lot. The Ford was unlocked. There was a tracksuit lying on the front seat. I pulled a registration card from the glove compartment, a pack of matches from the center console, and the tracksuit pants. I twisted them as tight as I could and dropped them into the gas tank, lit the end, and got out of there as fast as I could. Halfway down, I heard an explosion. I hope she gave him enough money to cover it. I may have broken a few traffic laws coming home, but I had to take the country roads to avoid running into Donna. After parking the bike behind the garage, I pulled out the fertilizer spreader and started pushing it back and forth across the lawn. A few minutes later, my wife came outside and saw me. She had a disappointed look on her face. Just then, her cell phone rang. She turned away, answering the call. I couldn't make out the conversation, but it sounded like the person on the other end of the line was agitated about something. Brian, I left the Volvo in the mountains and decided to get some exercise by riding my bike home. I know it sounds silly, but could you give me a ride back to pick up the car? On the way back to get the car, she didn't say anything. She played with her fingers in her lap. She was obviously worried about something. As we approached the mountain road, we saw a group of fire trucks climbing to the top. We got about halfway up when a policeman stopped us. "I'm sorry, guys, but there was an accident at the top of the mountain. A truck caught fire. We can't let anyone up there right now." "My wife's car is parked up there. Can we go over and get it?" "Wait a minute." We sat in silence while he talked to someone on the phone. "Okay. You can go upstairs and an officer will walk you past the fire trucks." Getting out of the Humvee, Donna looked at me. "You can go home now. I'll be fine. Thanks for your help." I just nodded at her. When she was out of sight, I followed her. It was easy because of all the commotion. When she got to the top, the guy she was on the trail with came up to her waving his arms. Of course, I couldn't hear anything, but it was obvious she was trying her best to calm him down. They argued for about 10 minutes, and then he walked over to the fire chief and said something. When he and Donna got into the Volvo, I hurried back to the Hummer. It would take them a while to turn around with all the fire trucks and hoses, but I still had to hurry. As I pulled out, I saw the Volvo turn the corner. I drove home, but immediately left in the Honda. I went to Emily's. I had to apologize for being late, and she insisted I tell her everything. She seemed interested, although I softened the story a bit. Josh and Terry were happy to see me and happily ordered pizza for dinner. We spent a couple hours getting stuff out of the basement for the yard sale. The guys worked hard and didn't complain about anything. I wanted them to be mine. I asked Emily to drive me home around 9 and left the bike at her place. Donna got home late. I didn't bother asking where she'd been. Early the next morning, while Donna was showering, I removed the SIM chip from her cell phone. I went to the cell phone office and terminated her service, paying a $200 cancellation fee. At the end of the day, the landline phone would be disconnected, as well as DSL and cable TV. I notified the landlord that I was moving out and mentioned that my wife could stay and that he should contact her about a new lease. The water and electricity would be turned off at the end of the week. It only took a few minutes to load my stuff into the Hummer, and I was on my way to the apartment Marge had found. Marge had left a note that Detective Green had asked me to call him. I went down to the station and found his office. "Well, well, well, Mr. Powers, you're still alive. What's that supposed to mean?" Felix Green laughed softly. He seemed to enjoy my dilemma. "Do you know a man named Bobby Terrell?" I can honestly say I've never met the man. I slipped my hand into my pocket and handed him the registration number of the Ford. He looked at the form and said, "Very interesting." We both laughed. "Mr. Terrell and your wife have been on the phone a lot lately. She's called him 6 times, and he's called her 4 times in the last week. She also withdrew $12,000 from her savings account 3 days ago. Bobby Terrell is an ex-con who kills people for a living. We kind of follow him, and we're surprised when we noticed this connection. Is there any particular reason why your wife wants you dead, Mr. Powers?" There was until yesterday morning when I canceled a $1 million life insurance policy. She doesn't know about this? No, she doesn't. Bobby's good at what he does, and I'm impressed with the way you handled him. I assume he's already been paid, but I don't know if he'll try to fulfill the contract since he lost his truck. I just wanted to let you know that we talked to him. I told him that if anything happens to you anytime soon, I will pick him up immediately. We also recommended that he take some vacation time for a while. However, I'm not sure if that will discourage your wife. I have moved out of the house. I don't know what else I can do. Felix leaned back in his chair. I think there's something you're not telling me, Brian. All the pieces don't fit together. Just be careful. I went straight to Emily's. She agreed to go to lunch, and I was glad she liked sushi. I tried to explain to her what was going on, but it was too cryptic. There was so much I wanted to tell her, but I couldn't. Every now and then she would throw perplexed looks at me, and I would change the subject instead of explaining. It was a long dinner. That night she had no trouble persuading me to come to dinner. I apologized to her for the unbelievable nonsense, but she only laughed. I felt comfortable with her. The next morning I decided I was ready to get back to work. I had a good time with Josh and Terry the previous night. Emily and I had planned a big weekend together, and I was looking forward to it. Funny enough, I didn't miss Donna at all. In fact, I was relieved that I wouldn't have to face her anymore. It was only a short drive to work, and I was taxiing out in the Hummer with a wide grin on my face. Things were going well. The big monster picked up speed quickly, but as I started down the first hill, I noticed something strange. The brakes weren't responding at all. I had seen movies where this happened, and I always thought how stupid the drivers were because they couldn't stop the car. The Hummer was going faster. I calmly grabbed the gear lever and shifted it from drive to low. This caused it to lurch and downshift, but it continued to pick up speed. I was approaching a stream of cars and a lot of intersections. I was going much faster now. On the left side was a cemetery with a grassy embankment going up from the street. I turned and hit the handbrake at the same time. The Hummer spun 180 degrees and flipped over. Everything went black. There was no pain. The second time I woke up was in a hospital room. I heard my own groaning and felt some movement around me. In the same instant, a nurse looked into my eyes, and then there was more commotion in the room. Now there was pain, lots of pain. I was glad I was drawing attention to myself, but at the same time I wanted everyone to leave me alone. How confusing. Finally, it appeared that someone of tall stature had arrived, a qualified doctor, I assumed. I struggled to open my eyes and looked around the room. White robes flashed around, but Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed. I felt better. There was a lot of adjusting and checking, and I suddenly fell into a dream. When I woke up the next time, everything was quiet. I tried not to make any noise because I wanted to avoid the commotion. I slowly opened my eyes and looked outside. It was night, and everything was relatively quiet. No one was in the room except Emily, who was asleep in the chair by the bed. My whole body ached. I turned my head to Emily. "Hey, are you awake?" She looked up and smiled. "No, I'm sound asleep and dreaming." "Thanks for coming over." "No problem." I closed my eyes and went back to sleep. When morning came, I woke up fine, but the pains continued. There was a whole medical team in the room, but Emily wasn't there. I didn't expect to see her at all. The doctors were full of questions. "Does it hurt? Does it hurt? Can you see it?" I answered all their questions. I asked about Donna. She showed up at the hospital to sign intake forms, but no one had seen her since. I was in the hospital for 2 days before I woke up. Emily was there every day. Felix Green checked on my condition daily. I had a concussion, a broken collarbone, a broken left arm, and 3 broken ribs. There were various internal injuries, but nothing life-threatening. Their biggest concern was that I had been unconscious for 2 days. I was hungry as hell, and finally someone brought me some soup. I was able to eat and drink some ginger ale. Felix showed up a little later. "I thought you had my back." "Sorry, we didn't see it." "Do you have any idea what happened?" "Well, someone cut all the brake hoses on the Humvee, then disconnected the airbags, front and side. You punctured the windshield, and the seatbelt broke 3 of your ribs. Good thing nothing caught fire. Too bad the Hummer's totaled." "Hell, I didn't like it anyway. I just bought it to spite Donna." "Speaking of the wife, do you know where she is?" "I haven't seen her since the accident. They said she signed the intake forms here at the hospital. How did she decide to do that?" "I went and got her. She wasn't too happy about it. After signing all the paperwork, a uniformed officer drove her home. I asked if she wanted to see you, and she said she didn't need to." "Well, I guess you saw her after I did. She's out of town?" "We came by and took a look around. There was a lot of money in her purse, almost $8,000. She left her driver's license, credit cards, and all her personal effects. I don't think she left town empty-handed. We just think she's missing." "Any idea who tampered with the Hummer?" "We have no idea." "Bobby Terrell?" "Believe it or not, Bobby Terrell was in a hospital in Philadelphia. Apparently a couple thugs grabbed him and took him to Philly. They explained to him they didn't want anything to happen to you." "Who do you know in Philly, Brian?" "Shit. Felix, I don't know anybody in Philly, honestly. I have no idea who you're talking about." "I believe you. Look, I gotta run. If you need anything, let me know." After Felix left, Emily walked in. "Hey. The doctor said you can come out tomorrow if you have somewhere to go. I told him you'd come to my place. One of the nurses gave me instructions, so I know how to take care of you. I'll be able to change your bandages and stuff. The nurse will come once a day to see how things are going, and the doctor will see you in a week. Okay?" "Sounds good to me. Who's gonna sponge bath me, you or the visiting nurse?" "I think it's your choice. At least both my legs were working. I could go to the bathroom by myself, sit down and eat at the table like a normal person. The painkiller made me nauseous, so I tried to wean myself off of it as soon as possible." Emily and the boys were thrilled. I was enjoying my recovery. We didn't go outside for the first week, and then I told her to drive up to the old house. The owner was there, and he was anxious to talk. He hadn't heard anything about Donna and wanted to know what to do about renting the house. Our stuff and her stuff were there. He needed to put them away so he could rent the house. We made an arrangement that suited us both. Marge came to visit me at Emily's house. She was at the hospital every day and knew Emily pretty well. They seemed to hit it off. I was going to go back to work, but I wanted to stay with Emily and the boys for a while longer. I was recovering pretty well. I stayed living with Emily and the boys. After about 3 months, the relationship changed from platonic to romantic. I moved into the bedroom without much fanfare. Josh and Terry seemed to think it was natural. We went to social events together. I even started going to parent-teacher conferences. The only problem was that we weren't married. I was married to Donna. I contacted Felix regularly, but he had no news. Eventually, I sued to have her officially declared dead, after which I could marry Emily. I took her to a romantic little Italian restaurant. After a good bottle of wine and a great meal, I was ready. Emily, I realize it hasn't been that long for either of us, but I seriously believe I would like to spend the rest of my life with you. You're not thinking about getting married? Is that a hypothetical question, or are you proposing? I'm proposing. Will you marry me? Yes, but we have one little problem. What's that? You have to meet my family in Philadelphia.